Welcome back to episode 52 of the Second Look Sports Podcast. I'm your host today, Justin Arenburg, and joined along with me is Cristian Ceniti. This is episode 52, but it should be known as the Trade Deadline Preview Show. That's exactly what we're going to talk about this whole entire episode. So gear up, because we have a lot to talk about, because there's already been some big trades that have happened in the last couple of days, including right away Mackenzie Weegar going from the Calgary Flames to the Utah Mammoth. The Mammoth give up 3 second-round picks, a prospect, and then Olimata as well. This is a big swing taken by the Utah Mammoth with some of the picks that they've stored for a lot of years now. What do you initially think about this deal, Cristian?
Oh, yeah. First of all, I mean, we've been having a lot of pretense leading up to this deadline week that, this is a drier market than usual. It's going to be more of a buyer's market. There's a lot of sellers and not enough buyers. And I think all we've really seen are trades that make us scratch our head and say, that looked pretty expensive one way or another. I don't know if I would say this is one of them. Like, listen, Mackenzie Weegar has tons and tons of term left on his deal that he signed when he arrived in Calgary. I think it's 5 more years. I believe over $6 million.
Signed through 2031 at $6.25 million.
And he's 32 years old. So there's definite risk being brought on here by Utah. But yeah, you mentioned they have a war chest of draft picks coming back from when they were still in Arizona. And it's time to start using them. They're in that playoff mix. This isn't a purely rental deal. This is something for the future as well. It continues to solidify their blue line, which just gets better and better compared to when they first arrived in Utah. I think I referenced this previous trade a lot. I don't know if I've done it much on this show, but in tons of conversations, I always look back to last year's deadline when Florida acquired Seth Jones, right? I believe that was a first. It might have been a first and a second for Seth Jones. And think about how we viewed Seth Jones in Chicago when that trade was announced. How did we view him? He was a $9 million player who was playing like, I don't know, a $4 million player for multiple years in Chicago, basically from the moment he arrived there. And that trade totally rejuvenated him. Yeah, he arrived to an awesome team in Florida, but I really do think there are players that motivation and playing in a winning environment does wonders for their play, right? It doesn't really have to do with anything. Yeah, right situation. And I kind of get that sense with this deal. I feel like Mackenzie Weegar going from a contending Florida team, playing for Calgary, who, yes, they were surprised last year, but they definitely had some tough years beforehand, and him arriving in a upswing team in Utah. I think this bodes well for Mackenzie Weegar kind of recovering some of his value. You look back to when he arrived in Calgary, and he was viewed as a premier defenseman, two-way defenseman, really, because he can pinch in offensively as well. So I think he can get back to that level of play in the remaining years that he has left, at least like the first 2 or 3. So I like the deal for Utah. I do like it.
I really like the deal for Utah. I think it's a big improvement to their defense. Now you can have a first pair of Mikhail Sergachev and Mackenzie Weegar if you want to go up and you want to load it up that way, or you can spread them out and, give them 2 or separate pairs all by themselves. I really like this deal though, because it means that Utah is actually believing in what they are producing on the ice, and they're in a playoff spot right now. They're 2 points clear of the last wild card spot, and I think it's like 6 points clear, 4 points clear of the team that's trailing them in the first spot out of the wild card. So I just really like this deal for Utah because it signals that, hey, we're not just gonna keep these draft picks anymore. We're going to use them and turn them into great roster players that can help us win now. And for Mackenzie Weegar, he obviously had to waive the no movement clause to go to Utah in the first place. I think this is a great decision for Weegar personally as well, because he's going to a team that now is going to compete right away and is going to compete for the next several years, as they have a young core that he is now looked at as a veteran leader on as well, just like he would have been in Calgary. But he gets to go to a winning environment instead of just staying in a rebuild that probably wouldn't have came out of that rebuild until 2028, 2029, I feel like. So this is really good for Mackenzie Weegar as well. I really like Mackenzie Weegar's fit in Utah as well. That's the biggest thing. The fit, when you hear some guys' names and you think about, oh, does he actually fit in Utah? No, some people don't. But Mackenzie Weegar, definitely does. And that's the most exciting part, is the fact that I think this is going to be a big help. And I don't think that they overpaid as quite as much as what we've seen some other deals so far. So I really like this for both sides. I think that Calgary obviously gets a much needed top prospect. They get 3 second round picks that should help them this year, especially the New York Rangers one that's probably going to be in the top, I guess, 7 of those first or second round picks. So it's going to be really good value for Mackenzie Weegar. It's just, this is really good draft capital. I really like this for both sides. Like, surprisingly, like looking at the Mackenzie Weegar deal, we look at other deals and we say, oh, there's a clear winner, there's a clear loser. This one, it feels like both teams are winning, and that's the best thing. That it really is.
I'm in agreement. I do think this has win-win potential on the face here, at least, right? Like, just coming off of the trade. Obviously, reality has to play out, but
Yeah.
on paper, win-win.
Win-win, definitely win-win. I think Mackenzie Weegar will fit in like immensely with Mikhail Sergachev if they want to go that route. I don't think Utah is done though, and we'll get to that later on. But yeah, this is a great deal, and they jumped the market in terms of, like, they saw Colton Parayko, which we're gonna get into right after this. Colton Parayko might be going to Buffalo. It's still undetermined because of that. But then they were like, okay, let's pivot and go get the guy that we want to go get. And yeah, obviously, in both scenarios, Mackenzie Weegar and Colton Parayko, they had to sign off on these deals. And I mean, how could you turn it down if you're Mackenzie Weegar? Living in Utah, it looks amazing, first of all, and then to be on a team that's so young and so talented and up and coming, it's something that you can't say no to, I feel like. So yeah, that's where we are with Mackenzie Weegar, but we'll move on to Colton Parayko, because Colton Parayko is potentially a Buffalo Sabre. The deal is in place to send him to Buffalo. It looks pretty steep considering Radim Murka and a first round pick. Radim Murka, who went 9th overall in the 2025 draft, and a projected or 2026 first round pick, is what the cost seems to be, plus whatever else didn't get leaked out already. I don't really like this either way. I think that it's probably best if Colton Parayko just says, hey, I don't want to go to Buffalo. And this is a really good thing for Buffalo in the long run. I really think that. What about you?
Yeah, no, it's like, yeah, you have to clarify that, like, Colton Parayko could save the Buffalo Sabres in this case. Is kind of what it feels like. One thing I was
Yes.
looking at here, because we were talking about, like, comparing the Uyghur and potential Parayko deals, and yeah, just for added context, you might have already mentioned it. Like, the hang up is whether Parayko is willing to waive to go to Buffalo. That's what everyone's rating on right now. I was thinking to myself, like, these two players, Parayko and Uyghur, pretty comparable. If you're the Sabres, do you have a little bit of regret, or not buyer's remorse, because we have to see if the deal happens, but, like, you can either do this reported deal for Parayko or you can do the Mackenzie Weegar deal. I was just checking. Like, the Sabres do have all of their second round picks after
Yeah.
this year, so the 3 years. Utah also still has 3 second round picks after making this trade. So that's the difference there. Utah would be like, Utah is now in the Sabres' current case, whereas the Sabres would be getting rid of all their future
Yeah.
second round picks. So that's a definite question in mind there. But yeah, I like Parayko in the sense that he has recouped some of his value, I think, in recent years. Being on Four
Yes.
Nations and Team Canada has exposed him to a lot more of the NHL audience to say, okay, this guy, he fits in. He looks like he can be on this roster off of mostly merit. There's definitely question marks there. He's had some question mark seasons, and his contract as well. I believe it's also 6.5 with a ton of term left on it,
Yes.
and similar aged as well. I think for Buffalo, I just don't see the sense in bringing in a $6.5 million defenseman to play on your third pair. You have four
Especially
guys ahead of him right now.
Especially considering the fact that you have Owen Power, who's making $8+ million a season now, and you have Dahlin, who's making $11 million a season. You have Samuelson, who you're paying a pretty penny for. You have Kesselman, who you're paying for. You have Bowen Byram, who looks like a
Yeah.
breakout player, or like he's been pretty good his whole career, but like he looks
Yeah.
more comfortable right now, and he's already making $6 million on this ticket. So you would expect
I
his
guess the
next one
thinking
is
would be
going to
that,
be
like,
bigger.
definitely, maybe the thinking there is they're already looking at, and this definitely makes sense, right? You bring in a player, you're going for a playoff run if you're the Sabres, which is awesome to say. I'm looking so forward to what they do the rest of the year here.
Yeah,
But you stack for this year where you have 5 top 4 defensemen, but come off season, you're offloading one of them to get a
you
more
have
manageable
to.
cap. Right? Like Byram is probably, I think, the name because we know that there's
I
been
would argue
talks
it's
on him
probably
wanting to move.
power. I would argue it's power now,
Maybe, like, yeah,
just with
I
that
know
cap
that
hit.
he's been underwhelming based off of that cap hit, but to me, Owen Power is one of those guys where you kind of just keep banging your head on the wall because it feels like it has to work out. And if the Sabres are going to be on the up and up beyond this year, I think I'd have even more patience for him to work on that blue line personally. But
Yeah.
I know that people are underwhelmed by him. Yeah.
So
Um.
so when we talk about Parayko just going, we do think like I think we're in agreements with that. Like Parayko would be a great fit in Buffalo. We're not saying that it would make the decor probably one of the best in the NHL this season. But in terms of long term, this is not a great deal for Buffalo if it goes through. That's the point that we're trying to make here, because Redeem Merca is literally a Colton Parayko in a couple of years. And then you're giving up a first round pick and whatever else on top of that for a 32-year-old guy that's already, on the back half of his career and is making $6.5 million. Like we said, going to play in your third pair. It just doesn't make sense, right? Like it makes sense in the sense of if Colton Parayko was just $6.5 million for this season, it makes total sense, but it's still a steep price to pay. For
Yeah.
what you're going to have to give up to then take on Colton Parayko's salary for long term, it just doesn't make sense. And I think that's the point that we're trying to make, right?
He's another, just the last thing I've got here in comparing Parayko to Weegar. You compare their games. Yes, they are both two-way defensemen with a bit of the offensive touch, but how they go about being good defensively, I think is different. Parayko is more of a, not a bruiser, but he is a large guy. He can clear the
Yeah,
net front. He can block shots. He plays a more wear and tear game, whereas Weegar is more of the cerebral approach to defense, right? So I
he
think that
does, but he does
Mackenzie
put up
Weegar's
Uyghur does put up a lot of blocks as well. Like he is
okay.
a guy that will
Yeah.
get in the lane and block a lot of shots. He fills up every single category.
Yeah. No, he is just he's a great skater as well. Like some of the defenses in puck transport, whereas Parayko, I think he could have more trouble with his skating where he's going back to into his zone for a puck battle in the corner and he's getting bruised just because he's a little slower coming out of the corners. Like I can see Uyghur's game aging better than Parayko's. So that's
Yes,
just another factor here of
I
why I
can
don't
agree
love it
with
for the
that.
Sabres.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So either way, we'll wait to see if this deal goes through. Maybe by the time this comes out, within in an hour of this recording, it could be through. Or not. I feel like if you had to give it a guess, what do you feel like is going to happen? Do you think Parayko is actually going to waive to go or not?
We talked about this before we started recording, but this feels like it would have happened already if
Yeah.
that was the case. He's taking a lot of time here. Now, flip side is that Tyler Myers took a week to decide if he was going to waive.
Yeah.
So there is precedence, very recent precedence that it could end up going through. But if I had to guess today, I'm going to say no.
I'm going to guess a no as well. I think the same thing. If there was going to be a decision made of whether or not he was going to go, I think it would have already happened. We saw with Mackenzie Weegar, probably a better situation, to be honest, considering you got to think about where you're going with Utah or Buffalo. The thing with these types of deals are like that I think people get hung up on is it's not just like, hey, you're going to Buffalo to play hockey. It's like, we're actually going to send you to a place to live for the next 5 years of your career. Like, you know what I mean? Like, it's not like a rental going out for a couple months and then they get to decide where they're going to go. It's more so like you got to talk about it with your family because you're going to uproot everything that you've done in St. Louis for Parayko, that is, and you have to move to Buffalo for the next foreseeable future. So it's really a harder decision than I think a lot of people realize because it's not just about uh, in terms of hockey, it's also about the human element as well, and that's something I think people need to remember. Um, moving on, um, we have to talk about Robert Thomas. Like, this guy went from uh, his name's out there, but like no one's really gonna, really entertain it, and Doug Armstrong's not really gonna do anything. To okay, now there's a potential chance as of last Saturday that there's a 50-50 chance that he probably gets traded, according to Elliot Friedman. And now we are starting to see the talks of him going to Buffalo that apparently broke down, but the cost is the big thing here. Christian, the cost is ridiculous in my opinion. There is no reason that you should be paying whatever is out there for Robert Thomas. It just doesn't seem worth it for that type of player. If it was if it was a much better player, like, I'm not saying Robert Thomas isn't good, but if it was a better player than Robert Thomas and that was the price you had to give up, like it's like a top prospect or two top prospects, maybe even a first round pick, plus even more than that. Like, we're talking about blue chip prospects. Like Caleb Duvernay, who was drafted 4th overall, is the rumored return that St. Louis wants from Utah for Robert Thomas. I really don't think that is worth it.
Yeah. Have we seen where the offer broke down for the Sabres and the Blues? Like, do we know what some of the pieces were involved in that
We
deal,
don't know about that one.
willing?
We just know that the Sabres weren't willing to meet the offer required, basically, because
I shouldn't say that we know, like we don't have any confirmation on this type of stuff, but we just had another report today. This is from Jimmy Murphy, who is he's Bruins focused. And he says that apparently St. Louis, in talks between the Bruins and Blues about Robert Thomas, St. Louis asked Boston for James Higgins, Fraser Minton, and a first. Their 2026 Bruins first, not that very valuable Leafs first that the Bruins also have.
Yeah.
Anyways, like that is 3 of the reported 4 pieces that the St. Louis Blues are looking for, and already I feel like I'm out at that price.
Oh,
and I think the Bruins are obviously out too.
I'm out of that price for 100%. They talk about, like,
I don't think this is a Robert Thomas thing, though. It's a Doug Armstrong thing, right?
It's like, a Doug Armstrong thing. His price is way too high. Like, it's insanely high, and no one in their right mind should be willing to pay that price, considering there's other people out there that you can go get that aren't going to cost as much, and they're probably going to give you the same impact this season that Robert Thomas would. That's the thing.
That's a key point, is this season, though. Like, listen, I will come very much to the defense of Robert Thomas here. He's one of my favorite players in the league. This is a guy who's on the fringe of Team Canada's roster. You can question whether that's because his GM was also at the helm of Team Canada, but this is someone who I'll give credit to Jason Bukala on this one of Sportsnet, who made the comparison. I want sometime this week. He said that kind of his Robert Thomas comp is Nick Suzuki, where he is Robert Thomas is a 1C. Is he a premier 1C in the top tier? No, but like, I'm not gonna have qualms with him as a 1C. He's a point per game player. He's a right shot, takes faceoffs as a centerman, and defensively responsible, 2-way game. There's a lot to like there.
There's
Plus,
so much
when you factor in his age and contract, right? 26 years old. I think it's 8.125 for five or 6 years. It's a really good. He's locked in here in a rising cap. There is a lot to like about Robert Thomas.
There is.
Yeah, some of this on like at face value feels like a lot, coming off of like the Quinn Hughes trade and them kind of saying, well, that's our comparable here.
Exactly.
Right? So
that's the comparable that I'm looking at when you think about what we hear, like Higgins, Minton, a first, and something else for Robert Thomas, and that's really all you're going to get is Robert Thomas in return. It just doesn't feel right, because that's the exact same offer that Vancouver got for Quinn Hughes. And we view Quinn Hughes as a top 5 player in the entire league. Yeah. It's not like we're viewing him as someone, we're not viewing Robert Thomas as like a crap player, but we're just saying Robert Thomas is not worth Quinn Hughes' level of return. And that's the difference, that it just doesn't make sense to deal with Doug Armstrong unless his price on Robert Thomas comes down, or, you know what, maybe we're getting duped and we're getting fooled, and that's not actually the price that it is. But sure seems like it, because if Caleb Duvernay is out there in conversations, seems like a very very steep price to pay.
We also had last year, from a Leafs perspective here, tons of talk about Braden Shen. The reported price there was not one, but both of Easton Cowan and Ben Danford in a
Yeah.
package for
Yep.
Braden Shen, who is like he's out there again for the ahead of this trade deadline. I don't think that the Blues are asking for that or gonna get that. Like that's obviously not something that's out there. So he came to his senses a year later, it feels like, but
I just
yeah,
feel like
I don't know. That's a tough one.
Doug Armstrong's prices are just ridiculous right now. Like I understand he's really good at his job, and this is like something that he's probably
He's got a solid track record, but recent track record isn't as great, right?
no.
In
We
the
can look
entire
at
body of work is awesome.
we can look at the exactly point to a trade last summer, which was Zach Balduke for Logan Mailloux. That's not a great
Yeah.
trade in return for St. Louis, but it's also the fact that he's standing firm on these prices when obviously the team's not great, and he probably should try to get the assets that he can, to then
It's
put
also
a
weird
team
that we had
into.
some reports that Thomas or Cairo is kind of the approach
Yeah,
here, and not
yeah,
both. If you're trading one, trade both.
yeah, exactly. If you're gonna
Personally,
blow it up. Don't just half blow it
yeah,
up with one of your franchise guys and Jordan Kyrou. Just get rid
yeah.
of them all, like Parayko, Kyrou, and Thomas, and then go get a bunch of picks. You have Jimmy Snuggerud, who I really like. You also have
Dvorsky's looked awesome
Dvorsky.
too.
Yeah, they have they have a couple good prospects as
Dylan
well in their
Holloway.
pool. Yep.
Yeah,
Broberg, who they just signed as well. They have
yep,
some good young
yep.
pieces. It's not that. It's just the fact that if you're gonna do this, do it right and get what you can. But don't also get so greedy that you just put yourself into a corner where no one wants to deal with you, because that is the worst
Yeah.
possible thing if you're St.
Put
Louis in this trade deadline.
putting aside the crazy ask, if I'm just taking away that context and just saying what player am I most interested to see whether he moves or not and where he goes, it's 100% Robert Thomas. Like I know there's other
100%.
intriguing names out there, like Shane Wright's another name that's out there, which would be very intriguing as well. But I think Robert Thomas, I think like I mentioned off the top, he's inadvertently getting a bit of the flack here for some of the how this trade is being reported, right?
Yes.
I really do think he's an awesome player
He's a
who
great
can be
player.
part of an integral core. Like I really do think that he's not your best player on your team, but he can 100% be that 2-3 in your awesome contending core. I really do think so. So I'm
I
very
agree.
curious about him.
I agree. And the thing is, like, if like we're talking about this deal and it's like a first round pick and a top prospect, sure. But it's not
I think it's even
that.
if you just take away one of the pieces, like going back to this Boston deal.
If you if you said James
If it's a
Hagen's in a
first
first round pick,
minton, yeah, one of the two prospects and a first, right, we're getting there.
I'm very much in the ballpark of that deal. And you said, "Oh, give me a fourth round pick on top of that," and there's your
Yeah, like
three
this,
pieces.
and yeah,
There
and
you go.
whatever. Like you're just
Because
nitpicking at that point, but that feels way more in the ballpark.
that feels so much more comfortable for that type of player. Because you're still like James Hagens was drafted 7th overall this year. He's a blue chip prospect, like a legit guy that everyone thinks is going to be a franchise player one day, and that's what you're going to get in return. And then a first round pick on top of that for a guy that, he's great. He's a point per game player, but like we said, he's not going to be the best player on your team. I just think Quinn Hughes type of return is just absolutely insane. And if those are the
Yeah,
types of prices anyone is going to pay, don't go anywhere near Doug Armstrong when he's calling you, because it's just ridiculous. Anyway, we'll leave it there. I hope Robert Thomas moves, because it would be so much fun to see him go, but in the sense of like, don't do it for the stupid price that it seems to be right now. The Edmonton Oilers. The Edmonton Oilers. There is so much to talk about here with this team. They've already made 2 deals with the Chicago Blackhawks. They've acquired Connor Murphy and Jason Dickinson, and they gave up a second and a first round pick for 2 of those players. What do you think? What do you think, Christian?
not to make it all about the Leafs again, but 2 years ago, actually, I think it would have been 3 years ago now. The Leafs also made not a pair of trades. It was one trade acquiring two players, a defenseman and a forward, right? So Jake McCabe and Sam Lafferty. And I believe they also traded a first and a second round pick in that deal. So once again, what would you like? And McCabe was also retained. He had 2 years left on that deal. He's since signed another extension. Lafferty, I think, as well. No, actually, he might have been UFA. Either way, Dickinson is also UFA in this trade. Murphy's UFA. Yeah, all that context. No, I don't like it. And just on the Edmonton itself, I don't know how getting out of Mangiapane's $3 million next year and you're saving $1 million because Dickinson is half retained, costs you a first. Like, once again, Leafs traded Patrick Marleau to the Carolina Hurricanes, $6 million left on his 1-year deal. They trade him before the draft, and it cost them a first round pick. How did this cost the Edmonton Oilers a first round pick to get half of the cap relief in a world where our salary cap is going to start with $100 million next year? Doesn't make sense. Really doesn't make sense. We have a lot to work with as far as Stan Bowman being a not great roster managing general manager.
Yep.
No good.
Connor McDavid's out the door.
He's just burying the hole here. It really, I guess, depends on how much you value that $3 million in the summer for flexibility, assuming they don't go and sign Jason Dickinson to a Trent Frederick like deal because they like him for what he shows in the last quarter of the season. Like, yeah, there's a lot of red flags here. I don't have much slander to throw like Connor Murphy's way, but he's not going to be he's not going to fix all of their issues defensively.
No, but I like the fact that they went and picked up Connor Murphy. I think it's a little bit of an overpay.
I like Connor Murphy as well.
I like Connor Murphy as a player. I think, like, as we saw, he was on the #1 penalty kill in the league, and he was the guy anchoring that penalty kill. So, I don't mind Connor Murphy. I think it's a good ad. Do I think he solves all your defensive issues? No. Is Connor Murphy going to be the defensive defenseman of like just the elite?
He's a number 5 defenseman, right? Yeah, like that's what he is
on a top team. Yes, and the really scary part is the fact that he was playing 4 less minutes a night in Chicago this year compared to last year, and you still paid a second round pick for him. That's the part that's really bad. And it's not like this Chicago team's like that much better. That's the part that's not great. So I'll put it this way. Who's worse? Who's had a worse tenure as the GM of the Edmonton Oilers? Ken Holland or Stan Bowman?
Yeah, I was actually thinking this as well last night, and I think I'm giving the win to Ken Holland, right? Listen, I think we can go down the list of Oilers GMs who have made mistakes, because they all have. But yeah, this has been a bit of malpractice in recent years from Stan Bowman.
Terrible.
Yeah. This is just off point here, but you think back to the past 3 GMs for the Oilers, right? So actually, did we go from Chiarelli to Ken Holland? I can't remember now, but
I remember exactly who we went from to Ken Holland.
Chiarelli is you bring him in because he's the author of the 2011 Bruins, right? Okay, cool. Ken Holland, the Datsuk Zetterberg era Red Wings. Stan Bowman, the Tays, Kane, Cup-winning Blackhawks, although you can give a lot of credit to Dale Talon for assembling the team before Bowman took over. So I think I figured out who the next Oilers GM is. Can you figure it out? Who's it going to be? We have Bruins, Blackhawks, Red Wings. Who's next?
I think it might be Tampa Bay, because they're going to be 10 years behind.
I they still got to get the Kings, man. They got to get Rob Blake.
Oh yeah, true.
Gonna be next.
But the thing that I'm thinking is, like, they're 10 years behind of what was happening in the past.
Yes, yeah.
Like, they're like, this guy won 10 years ago. Let's try to bring him in and do what he did 10 years ago to bring it back. And it's just not the same NHL that it was back when, the Chicago Blackhawks were in their dynasty. Like, it's completely different. So I don't know. This is really bad roster management by Stan Bowman, though. This is just terrible. Like, it is so bad. So bad. But yeah, let's is there anything else you want to say about the Edmonton Oilers other than the fact that I think they're done? Like, they've wasted their bullets. Their bullets are
Yeah,
wasted
they are done.
on
They have
Jason
500K in
Dickinson.
cap space. Yeah.
On Jason Dickinson and Connor Murphy. That's your reinforcements for Connor McDavid and Leon Draisaitl to go win a championship. Oh, by the way,
Yeah.
you acquired Tristan Jarry, who is making, what, 2 times more the salary than Stuart Skinner? And that's who you got net? The guy that gets pulled half the games he's been in the net for the Edmonton Oilers? It's ridiculous. How Stan
It's
Bowman
horrible.
is going to be looked at after this year. He should be fired. Like, this is
Probably will
inexcusable.
be.
This is inexcusable.
It definitely depends on what happens here. And I just want to wrap with the fact that McDavid and Draisaitl are so good, and you can even throw Bouchard into there too, that they can somehow overcome this and go on a run. That not a Stanley Cup winning run, but they will do everything in their power to somehow drag this team to like a second round, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
that's
not good enough. It's not good enough.
It's not good enough.
It's not good enough,
especially
in Connor McDavid's prime when he took the biggest discount he could possibly take to help the team win. And yet Stan Bowman is here just absolutely throwing it right down the trash can. It's terrible. Anyway, from one team to another that's underneath pressure, we have the Detroit Red Wings. The Detroit Red Wings, last year, if you remember, they were in a playoff push. Dylan Larkin, at the end of the season, after they missed the playoffs, said he was not impressed with the general manager, Stevie Y, for not making any deals to enhance their chances to make the playoffs, as they thought they were in a position that they were contending and that they should be rewarded for a player or two to add to their roster to help them make the playoffs. Stevie Y felt otherwise and didn't want to. But now the Detroit Red Wings are comfortably in a playoff spot, and Stevie Y has struck out on what seems to be Tyler Myers already. And I would assume that he was in conversations for either Mackenzie Weegar or Colton Parayko, if Colton Parayko goes through, just on the fact that he's looking for a right shot defenseman, obviously. And you know what? I really think that Stevie Y is going to be the guy that we're going to look at after this deadline and say, he either did a great job or he did nothing to compare to what Detroit has done this year to put themselves in a playoff spot to make the playoffs for the first time in 9 seasons or 10 seasons. So it's crazy. It's going to be a crazy week. And yeah, what do you think about what Stevie Y has over the next 48 hours, basically, or 36?
Yeah, I'm struggling to figure out where I kind of sit on this one, but I think I'm of two minds here. So I think a lot of us had some criticism of Stevie Y's early moves as Red Wings GM, specifically in free agency, right? Like drafting, Lucas Raymond and Moritz Seider. Those are some awesome picks, right?
Except he
like,
did get flack for drafting Moritz Seider, except that turned out really good.
Yeah, that was the surprise of the draft, right? He was projected in like the 15 range, and he went at what, 5? I think it was, right? So
6, yeah.
6. Okay. Raymond. I mean, there was some minds in that draft, like Alex Holtz, right? He was a guy I was sold on before the draft. The other Swedish top prospect of that draft. He has since bounced around Jersey to Vegas, right, in and out of lineups. Raymond, home run pick, right?
Yeah.
So there's lots of like there. Marco Casper, Simon Edvinsson, great drafting pedigree, but on the free agent front and just some of the pro scouting front, Andrew Kopp, JT Comfer, Ben
these
Sherrod,
deals are the ones.
Justin Hall, everything in this like
Mason,
3 to
Mason
5.5.
Appleton.
Sure, and like he's like more of one of the less offensive things, but there's a lot of just meh, right?
Yeah.
And I think perhaps Stevie Y might have been fooled in making these signings, but he hasn't been fooled by seeing them actually play for his team. He probably expected more of this entire combination, but I think in past years, and specifically last year was the only one where they've been in like the playoff mix again.
Yeah.
I don't know if I blame him too much for holding the powder dry last year, because what's the point of just making the playoffs? Like, I know the Red Wings have a drought, sure, right? It's the same talk with the Sabres, but I mean, the Sabres this year look way better than the Red Wings did last year, standings alone, but also just watching them. The Sabres feel like they could actually do damage in the playoffs. I definitely did not feel that way about the Red Wings last year. And I
So
would say this year,
let's pause
okay,
on that. Nic Roy has been traded. This is live. Nic Roy has been
okay,
traded to the Colorado Avalanche for a protected 2027 first round pick and the lowest of their three 2025 or 2026 fifth round picks.
okay.
Protected top 10 pick.
Yeah,
What do you feel?
smart by the Avs there to put a nice little top 10 protection. So we had the report from Frank Cervelli yesterday that the Leafs' ask in Nic Roy deals was a first round pick prospect. No specification of quality of the prospect, so whatever.
Yeah.
And not retaining. So I think from that report, I'm guessing no retention there for Nic Roy.
No, I don't think
So they
there's
got
any
that,
retention.
and he makes $3 million this year and next year. Um, so a first protected and a fifth. I'm okay with that. I'm I'm fairly happy with that. Getting a first in general is a win. Um, Nic Roy, yeah, his numbers are not stellar, but I think for anyone who's been watching the Leafs this year, it's not. He hasn't disappointed in just like his process. I've enjoyed watching his game. He's a right shot center. Won a cup in Vegas. Solid to great third liner. I like that both ways.
Yeah.
I'm content with that.
You can filibuster for a couple seconds and I will
Yeah.
do up this thing. But yeah,
I will go
I
back to the Red Wings here because I'm just gonna wrap up that. But this year, yes, their roster looks a bit better. Obviously, once again, standing wise, looks better. They're in a playoff position at this time this year. So yeah, they have pressure to make a deal, but even then, I'm still not gonna say that it's a disaster if they don't make a certain type of deal. We can give Stevie Y a lot of credit from his Tampa Bay days for going all in when he is convinced on his roster, right?
yeah.
He is that type of GM, but he has to be very convinced. And I don't know if he is still that convinced with this Red. They're on the up and up, but it's been very incremental over the years. And I still look at the team. I don't like I don't know if you need to throw in all the chips for anything that's in the rental category. For sure, I'll always be interested in the term market, like the Paraykos or the Weegars, but I wasn't going to fault them for not making a Tyler Myers trade, and I think he's got a year of turn left as well. But
Yeah.
not make or break for me, and I think he's still got time here to make a deal that we can grade him on. But I don't know if I'm throwing the Red Wings at the tippy top of teams with pressure to have a great deadline. Personally, I'm not.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I think he's not gonna. I think he's gonna have an underwhelming deadline. That's what I'll put that as. Like it's gonna be once again he is going to be looked at as not having the best deadline when he was
Yeah,
asked to have a good deadline. That's kind of where I'm gonna be with this. I feel like because it feels like it's going to be that type of situation here. I'm sorry, I'm working on trying to get stuff out at the same
I will
time, but
transition to the
yeah,
Leafs in
go
the
to the Leafs,
meantime
go to
because
the
that was our
Leafs.
next topic anyways. And once again with
But
the Nick Raw
I'll
thing.
I'll ask you,
Okay, yeah.
Nic Roy goes for a first round pick. You were unsure if that was going to happen, so are you happy with
Yeah, I honestly would have been satisfied if it was a flat second like a couple days ago. And so hearing the reports that that was their asking price, I wasn't convinced we were going to get that. I'm satisfied with a first and then you just throw on the fifth. Cool. I'm very happy with that.
It's
I
definitely a
have
seller's
more
market.
faith.
Definitely a
Yeah,
seller's market.
it's so interesting how he had all those reports, and I was personally preparing for a very quiet deadline week, even deadline day, because I think
Yeah.
when you throw in stuff like the playoff cap, not being able to get double retention anymore, I was prepared for things to be quiet, but it's been easy or like quickly moving so far. So on the Leafs and relating to this Nick Watt trade, I think Leaf fans should have more faith in this current management to hit not home runs, but be successful with their amateur scouting opposed to their pro scouting.
You
Mark
think?
Leach was hired last year. I feel like this is something that goes under the radar, and I've been trying to bring it up recently in conversations as well. Last year, the Leafs hired Mark Leach from the Dallas Stars as their head of scouting, the amateur scouting. I don't know what his actual title is, but he's the one running the show now, right? This is the guy who drafted Jason Robertson, Jake Ottinger, Wyatt Johnston, Miro Heiskanen, Rupe Hintz. Go down the list of Dallas Stars picks you like in the past 10 years. That's him. He's been Jim Nill's right-hand man for this type of stuff. I think even going back to the Detroit days when Jim Nill was there. So very, very good and long pedigree of being a good drafter. We obviously haven't seen him go to work for much at all. His first draft was last year. So you've got Linus Luke Kolblar as the Leafs top pick in the second round. Harry Nancy's another name. Victor Johansson. We have to see what the hell these guys are. It's not been given enough runway to see what they look like, but I am going to trust that process a lot earlier than I'm going to trust the Leafs management on the pro scouting side. We've seen them take swings and strike out a bunch of times in the Tree Living era here. I still hold out hope that we can see Matias Maccelli become closer to what he was in his Coyotes days. And it's not that you've got zero value out of these pro scouting trades like last summer. The Nic Roy deal, okay. You got him for, let's say, free because Marner was going. So that's you, and you just turned Nic Roy into a first round pick. Cool. It's not what you have gotten full value for Marner, but it's something. Cool. Dakota Joshua for a fourth. You're probably getting fourth round pick value out of Dakota Joshua this year, and he still has term. Scott Laughton. Actually, let's leave Scott Laughton aside. Matias Maccelli, like I mentioned, third round pick. I think you've got third round pick value out of Matias Maccelli this year. So you're not coming out below or above on any of these deals. All of these have been just net neutral deals. Teams like Florida, Tampa, Colorado, these contender teams, how they've got to this position is by winning those types of trades. And the Leafs haven't won these trades. I think you could even potentially go back to the Dubas era. They just didn't do good at the pro scouting level to win trades where you're bringing back NHL players with term, making those types of bets. Like I mentioned with the Seth Jones deal, that's obviously to a much higher degree, but I don't have faith in this management group to make those deals. So with that being said, give us all of the draft picks possible this deadline with an OEL, with a Scott Laughton. Give me all the draft picks because I don't trust you to trade for NHL players.
Yeah.
That's
fair.
What where I'm at with the Leafs there.
Okay. So
if there's one player, I have the last thing. Sorry, one last thing here. Leafs. There's one player I think they could try trading for a player in return. It's Nick Robertson. You can go and find some other teams, Nick Robertson, maybe who plays on a blue line, and you can swap problems. And that's how I think we end up with any type of player return this deadline.
Yeah.
Because it's going to be boring trying to watch the same team for the rest of the year. I would like one singular new player on the Leafs to watch and be like, what does this guy look like? So, that's all I've got for Leafs Corner.
Let's wrap a bow on this Nic Roy deal. So if like, I know you gave your initial thoughts, but like if you had to grade, if you had to grade what the Toronto Maple Leafs got in return for Nic Roy, what would you give it?
A-. I can't complain about a first round pick. Like this team, the idea that the Toronto Maple Leafs could exit this deadline with multiple first round picks has me feeling fairly satisfied. They've got one and they have three players out there to try and get another. There's a world where they end up with 3 first round picks. So this is the first leg complete. Getting a first for Nic Roy plus a 5th, that's a win to me. That's a win. I know that there's some people who thought that maybe you could get a first and a prospect. There was a report that was the asking price. Maybe they could have with retention, and you can question whether that was something they should have done. This leaves open the idea that they want to contend next year. So maybe you feel not great about that.
After seeing this trade go through for Nic Roy, you get a first round pick and a 5th round pick. Do you think, or do you believe in Brad to get them through this deadline and through them to the next contending year.
Like I said, I trust the amateur scouting more than the pro scouting. So, Brad, just go and get some pure draft pick returns for our main pieces, and it could potentially be left up to a
But do you
GM other
trust
than you to
Brad?
see what to do with them. I'm trusting Brad with just to get draft pick returns and nothing else. That's it. Do I trust him to? It shouldn't
Like,
take
is he the
rocket
GM?
science
Is
to.
he the GM of the future of this team?
To me,
To you?
no.
No.
To
Okay,
me, doesn't
that's
matter.
the
To
answer.
Keith Pelly, it still feels like it's a potential. So, but to me, no.
Yeah, I feel
This is
like
fine though.
you're
Step
right.
one is fine.
Step
Yeah.
one is fine, and we'll see what happens. But seems like Brad is full in on now we're gonna sell, and that's the direction it was always going to be. Just didn't the Leafs didn't want to say it, but now it's clear. Okay, so to wrap a bow on this podcast, we have some other guys who might be traded by the time this gets out in the next 25 minutes, probably. But we're gonna predict where they are going to end up. Okay. So I'm going to give you a couple guys and you're just going to name a team, and you don't have to say like why or why it fit, like what it fits. You just have to tell me where you think they're going to end up based on their name being out there realistically. Okay. First up, we have Robert Thomas. Do you think he's moving?
No. We're gonna get. Yeah, no, we're not gonna get the Robert Thomas deal that we all want. Not to be boring, but being realistic, this feels like one where tons of conversations happen at this trade deadline. They get close, and then it actually happens in the summer. So I've got no destination for Robert Thomas's destination is the St. Louis Blues.
Okay, that's fair. Sergei Bobrovsky.
I'm trying to think of a team that just so desperately needs goaltending, but also has a ton of cap space to make it happen, right? This is someone who has $10.5 million on his last year of the remaining deal.
If
I know.
if
Yeah,
he's
you got
being
something there?
traded, it's to Ottawa, in my opinion, because they desperately need goaltending. I think that they can move some cap around and maybe send Olmark back or whatever. But I think if we're being honest,
that
they aren't going to trade Borowski. This is the guy that's won back-to-back cups for you. You don't trade a guy like this. It would be
I was
ruthless
surprised
to
that
trade
this
a
is
guy
being
like
seriously. Well, listen, Vegas grew that type of reputation for being ruthless, and Florida, as back-to-back Cup champs, I don't know how many of us would fault them for also being managed in that way by Bill Zito. I can see the Ottawa shout. I can see that. Like they have 12 million in cap space, so you might be able to do it even without retention, depending on what Ottawa wants to do. It's a tough one to make work, though. Maybe Columbus go back there for one last
this.
hurrah.
Maybe. I don't know. It
Yeah.
just doesn't. Yeah. So we'll move on. Elias Pettersson.
Okay. This is when we're getting into names that I think I feel more confident saying they should get traded. I think if you're Vancouver, you'd be very smart to try and get off of this deal. Whether you have teams that bite is another question all in general. But to what I was saying earlier, so much talk about Carolina in previous years. I'll say that deal finally happens and that Carolina gets Petey.
Carolina. Nazem Kadri.
The Nic Roy thing, I don't know if it takes them out of
I think
the Nazem Kadri sweepstakes. Talking about Colorado here, because I mean it's a first. That's something that you would have used in a Kadri type of deal.
Yeah.
Montreal's in that center market, Judd. Do you think that that's something like?
I think I'm more now. I'm gonna reverse. I think PD is going to LA, and I think that now Kadri, this opens the door to go to Carolina.
Man, Carolina's one of those teams where it just feels like everyone fits their
vibe. Yeah, I mean they say all the time that they're comfortable with these players, like, or that they're comfortable with their own players, but secretly they're like, oh, we want to upgrade. Like we want to go see what we can get, and we can see if we can upgrade even more. So yeah, it's going to be very, very interesting to see if Nazem Kadri actually goes anywhere. But yeah, I think Nazem Kadri, if we're gonna be honest, it makes sense for him to go, considering that they've already traded Weegar and Rasmus Anderson. But at the same time, I could also see them saying, "No, we're just gonna wait another year and then try to move you." I think it's also up to Kadri, right? Like it's also up to him whether or not he wants to
Yeah.
go somewhere. So, Vincent Trocheck.
The Minnesota smoke seems like there's too much there for it not to happen.
Yeah,
And I think if there is like they want maybe someone a bit more top flight, but I don't think you can go wrong with Vincent Trocheck if you're Minnesota. I don't think you're going to regret that deal if you make it. Obviously price dependent, but the player in isolation, I like Trocheck a lot.
Ryan O'Reilly.
Here's one where there's also been the Colorado smoke. I think I think a lot of people, we talk about kind of O'Reilly and Stammer being comfortable in Nashville, not looking to, in Stammer's case, waive his actual no move or no trade, whatever he's got for protection. And O'Reilly, who's just been given this magical no move clause. But if there's somewhere that he could waive, it's a place I think he could be comfortable in that he's been in
Yeah,
before.
yeah,
Colorado.
I would agree. I think that I just have a couple more here. OEL.
I think everyone was kind of circling Edmonton, right? That was the one that felt like there was a lot of smoke there. You mentioned to me Detroit, and I think I can be sold on that. I think Anaheim is another team out there looking for. I think they do need more of that right shot, but OEL is someone who can play the right side. He's done that for the majority of his time in Toronto, and it's been really well. It's been done really well by him. So give me Detroit for an Eastern team, and then I'm going to cheat here and say Anaheim could be a dark horse in the West.
Ooh, that's interesting.
Yeah.
Two more. Jordan Binnington.
Man, I mean,
do you think he's moving?
I think they're definitely going to try to move him. I'm going to throw them out again. They've got to be getting someone here, Justin. How about Montreal? Like, what is Montreal trying to do? Where are they looking, man?
I don't. You're just trying to sink the Montreal Canadiens. Is what you're trying to do.
No,
you are.
No.
There's no one.
A Binnington location?
I think Vegas makes sense. If they can make cap work and get a goalie, because obviously they probably send a goalie back in return. Maybe it's Aiden Hill that they send back. Who knows? I think that Jordan Binnington has proven that once it comes playoff time, he's a guy that you want in the net. Last one, big name again, Doug Armstrong. Not probably going to happen, but we'll see. Jordan Kyrou. I think Seattle is the obvious one here.
I think this has been talked about before as making sense. And so we have the Connor Garland to Isles rumors that haven't materialized over the past couple days. So I will say it's because maybe the Isles can work out something for Jordan Kyrou. And he would also make a lot of sense for their makeup, right? Barzal and Kyrou, just absolute speed burners. I'd tune in for that.
I like it. I dig that. Good show. All right. Well, that's all the names I have here. Unless you have one name that I did not mention yet. I think that's it.
I think we're gonna have lots of time to talk about the review of all of this, and I'm sure there's gonna be names that maybe no one has considered yet, and I'm looking forward to that because that's always the fun. When the guy that nobody expected to be traded, a la Thomas Hertl a couple years ago, when that guy moves, that's when we're talking.
Yeah, that's the fun part when the deal with the players, big name players, I should say, that you don't expect to move, get the call. Hey, buddy, you're going to a contender, because that's usually what happens in these situations. But all we can say is that it's definitely a seller's market right now. There's still, I guess, 27 hours until the deadline, or 27 or 26 and a half, basically.
Less than 30. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
yeah, but yeah, we'll have a trade deadline recap on Saturday that will come out after the dust has settled on everything, and we'll see where everything sits, and we'll know whether or not Christian is happy with the Leafs brass on what they have done at this year's trade deadline. But that just about does it for this week's episode, or not this week's episode, the trade deadline preview. We'll see you on Saturday, and we'll talk to you later. Bye.